Welcome back to Blended Family Podcast. I'd like to thank you for joining me this evening. Hope you all are doing well, especially the fact that we are in the middle of the holidays, so things are going really well on your behalf. Before I even start this podcast, I would like to mention that this is for viewers' discretion advised, because there are going to be some touchy things that I will talk about that may be uncomfortable, definitely for children, which I don't feel like my podcast is for children, but it may bring up some things for some adults as well. So I just want to put that disclaimer out front and center as well. But as you know, this podcast is very authentic. It's not scripted. These are my own personal experiences that I have gone through that I am sharing with you all because it's more relatable. It's very real. A lot of us go through it, and like I always say, at the end of the day, it is to find a solution to how we can overcome certain things. So this particular podcast is about life before and after divorce. So I'm going to tell you who Tanya Lorraine Dean is, and then I'm going to get into who Tanya Lorraine Best is. Same person, but in the way they are two different people. So Tanya Lorraine Dean is my maiden name. So that is the name that I was born with, and that is who I'm naturally known as. And I love the name because it just has a beautiful ring to it, you know. And the reason why I felt the need to talk about who Dean is and who Best is, because sometimes in our marriages, there are certain things that can trigger, certain things that can happen or take place, and you know, it can be due to something that has happened to us. So, you know, just keep that in mind. I know there was some things that happened. There are things that has happened to me. I won't say they have actually put a what's the word I want to use? Like they're actually, you know, had a say so in my divorces that I had. But I will say it has made me a very cautious woman, as me being Tanya Lorraine Best. So with that being said, I am going to move forward, and we are going to get deep into this conversation. So please be ready, and I do have my tea.
Hard enough to be alone. I'm just trying to move along. Sometimes I do and then I don't. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. Tell myself that it ain't healthy. Second guessing it don't help me. I'm so tired of feeling empty. Dry my eyes, it's time to fight. It seems like I'm always against me. Seems like this is never ending, and I refuse to let it end me. Mentally, spiritually, physically, I need my peace. Oh, I need my peace. I wake up every morning and tell myself.
My blended family cup ready as well. And I will promise not to make it so drawn out or anything like that. But I want to get into, as a woman, life growing up as Tanya Lorraine Dean. So, here we go. Both my parents, they were married. And both my parents, there was a huge age gap. So, my mother was 15. My dad was 27. And in the 80s, early 80s is when they got together. They needed permission to actually get married. And they did get married from my great grandmother, who consented for my mother to marry my dad. In that marriage, you know, both my mom and dad had 4 of us. But I do have an older brother who is my dad's son, and he's not a stepbrother, he is my brother. Anyhow, there's 4 of us. There's 2 boys, 2 girls that my parents made. Life was extremely difficult. It was very hard. We were never able to stay in one residence. I can't really recall too much of everything going on, but we lived from shelter to shelter. You know, it was like two of us. You know, it would be four of us, like me and my siblings sleeping in one room, and then my parents in another room. And you know, that went on throughout my entire life. Even with that, I have been in and out of foster care, you know, in the system where I had lived with several different families. My mom was very, very sick, I would say. She suffered from a lot of depression, something that I also suffer from, but not to the extreme where I need to take pills or anything like that. And my dad was always away in the military. That was like my dad's first love, was the military. He loved, loved, loved the military. And being by, my mother had me at the age of 15. She married my dad 1 month prior to me being born. And then she had my sister at 16, had my brother at 17, had my youngest brother at 20. And at the age of 25, my mother committed suicide. And that was really tough because during those times, my mom was she was my best friend. And I was 9 years old when she committed this act. She did commit this act while we were home. So we were, I won't say so much of my siblings, but definitely me. I have witnessed this because my mother really suffered with depression where she had to take pills, and it had to calm her down or put her in the right, you know, mind frame. You know, I never knew the extent of my mother's sickness at all. I just knew the only sickness I knew of my mother was the fact that she had asthma. That was it. My dad, you know, we was living in the Bronx at the time, and in Castle Hill. And my dad, he would work in Brooklyn. And with my dad working in Brooklyn, it put a strain on my mom. My mom, you know, she would babysit. You know, a lot of West Indian people, when they come in, you know, either from the islands or they are, as we will call it, you know, children from Caribbean backgrounds, you know, they kind of line up with almost the same exact things that they do. You know, so my mom, she just catered to the children and she took care of them. And with that, you know, there was a lot of additional things that started to take place. And I can't say what started to take place right when my mother was contemplating life, then there was abuse that went on in my household that took place with myself and my dad. And that was extremely difficult because at the time I'm 9 years old and I'm not sure what's going on or what's happening and things like that. And, you know, it's like you kind of play along with it, but then, you know, you get told, you know, don't say anything to anybody because, you know, you don't want to get me in trouble and all this stuff. And, you know, because of the genuine love that you have for this parent, you feel the need to protect them, you know, which it should be the other way around, but it really wasn't, you know, because after my mom passed away, the abuse grew even more. It was physical, it was sexual, it was mental, it was all these kinds of things that I had to deal with as a young woman, as being Tanya Lorraine Dean. And it was very, very difficult. And I had to make a decision at the age of 15 to somewhat run away from home. And I ran away to a relative house because we had just moved to Brooklyn, or probably was in Brooklyn. We moved back to Brooklyn, I probably was there for about a year. And I ran to a relative house, and at this time nobody still knew, nobody knew about the abuse that was taking place, because I'm very good at camouflaging a lot of my feelings, and I'm still very good at doing that at 42. But I ran to a relative. She kept me, protected, because then my dad came looking for me, and he brought my siblings, and my siblings didn't want to leave, and we were dropped off at a police station because he still had access to the house or whatever, and we was taken into foster care. And the unfortunate part about that was that I was separated from my brothers. So it was my sister and I, and then it was my brothers. So the good thing about being with my sister was that we did not go to a group home. We actually went into a home where someone took my sister and I. And it's very, very difficult for families to take in older children. At this time, I was 15 going on 16. My sister, she's 14 at the time. My brother, he was 13, and my youngest brother was 11. He was 11. We're stepladder. We're literally stepladder in age. So that was the only good thing. We were blessed to be with a family. I will say their last name is the Hardisons, and they took my sister and I in, and I am still friends with them to this day. Even though all the kids grown up, and they all grew up and everything. So it's amazing to see that. But with that, with everything that I've gone through, with being abused in every which way, and then having to live with different folks, and then the change of schoolings, the change of boroughs, it was difficult to find a foundation in my life and find stability in my life. And even as I openly speak about this to you guys, some things just hit me and be like, okay, now I see why I was here, there, and there, and there. It was really hard trying to find a place as we all call home. It was extremely hard. From foster care, I ended up going into kinship care, whereas kinship, for those who don't know, is when a relative takes you in and they raise you. So I was blessed with that as well. And then shortly after, with that, I ended up moving out on my own, but I stayed within the agency. So there was an agency where I had a social worker, and they just made sure everything was okay. I had the essentials that I needed, and I had a pretty good social worker, I should say. But I was blessed to still stay with family regardless. Because having family during difficult times like these, family do come in handy. I was able to still be around my sister, of course, and then also around my brothers. I have to say that even though I lived in kinship care, I never actually went back to living with my brothers. We just lived with two different families, but we lived close by, which was good enough, because when I wanted to see my brothers, I was able to, even with my sister as well, because my sister and I, we also had split at one point where I did stay with one relative, and the three of them stayed with another relative. So growing up as Ty Lorraine Dean, it has been like the hustle and bustle, trying to format, develop, be creative in ways where it's like, how can I get past this? I will say to everyone that I did go to counseling. I went to counseling for a few years. It was necessary, just because you need to go to counseling or therapy. I would say it was therapy. Does not mean that you are crazy in any kind of way. It just means that it helps assess certain things. There are certain things that will go on in your mind. I used to have a lot of questions like, why me? Why did this have to happen? Because my household was so extremely dysfunctional. And with that, I've always said that if I was to ever have children, that I never want to put my children through anything like that. None of the abuse, the arguing, the drinking, the drugs, because there was heavy drugs in my household as well. The abuse, like, and this is one of the reasons why I don't drink and I don't smoke, because I looked at how the adults in my household were. Because even so, when my mom was alive, her and my dad, they used to drink, but they drank together. They were never drunk or anything like that. But you know, my dad now was a different story, especially after my mom passed away. And I was just like, I never ever want to be like that. So I made sure that I didn't turn out like that. I can't be around people who smoke, and if you drink, it is definitely to a minimum, because I can't stand anyone who gets too drunk or anything like that. Now, if you drink it in your house and we have like a small gathering and we all stay in the night, that's a little different. But if we're out in the public and all this, I cannot deal with that, and I never will, or accept it as well. So, you know, things like that altered my life, but it also put in perspective of the type of man that I wanted in my life. You know, I definitely didn't want anyone like my dad. The drinking, the drugs, the cigarette, those are like the first things I'll probably ask. Because I'll ask, do you smoke? Oh, you smoke? Then no. Are you a heavy drinker? Social drinker is fine, but if you're a heavy drinker, then the answer is going to be a no for me, because I cannot deal with that. It's almost like it's just a reminder of certain things. So here I am creating the type of man that I want. You know, I wanted someone who was extremely masculine. I wanted someone with height because my parents were short. You know, my dad, he's still alive, and I know it's crazy because I do still call him my dad. I don't call him by his first name or anything, because I've always called him dad. But my father is very much alive, and you know, he's 5'3". I think he shrunk a little. And my mom, she was 5'2". So my main thing was to always get a man who was like 6 feet and taller, because I wanted tall kids. And lo and behold, I have my oldest son who is close to 6 feet. And then I have my two little ones who are also boys. They are growing in height as well, because both my ex-husbands are about 6 feet, between 6 and 6'1". So, you know, with everything that's going on, you start to develop a man who can protect you, who can cover you, who can make sure that you are going to be well. My first husband, he was extremely masculine, and I liked it because I was able to be a woman. I was able to be feminine. I just had to take care of him at the time, which wasn't too bad, because I remember when I had to take care of my siblings. You know, cook, clean, help them with homeworks, make sure that their clothes was washed and clean and stuff like that. Yes, I did all of that. And so when I got married to my first husband, it was kind of like a breeze. And I used to feel bad because I remember I was a bachelorette for some time. And I remember when I was getting in the habit of trying to cook again and everything. And that man at that time did love me because poor thing used to eat my food. And I used to tell him, I was like, if the chef is not going to eat it, you don't have to eat it. And he would be like, nope, I'm going to eat it, because he never believed in wasting food. So he actually would eat my food. Of course, I've gotten so much better with it. But, you know, it just showed that. But then also some of the things that I have gone through as Tanya Lorraine Dean did have some effects on my marriage, where, you know, my first husband, he was affectionate in a kind of way that just turned me completely off. And I used to feel really bad because I used to tell him, and he couldn't understand. And I was like, you just can't do this because this is how it makes me feel, and things like that. And I wasn't affectionate in that way. I'm affectionate in other ways, where I love to give like hugs and kisses. That's like my kind of thing. The touchy-feely part was definitely not in the cards for me at that time because it was still close to some of the abuse that I had endured during the time. And I just haven't gotten over it completely. When my second marriage took place, it was a little bit different because I have grown. I had a 4-year break between both marriages. Oh, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Between my divorce to my first husband and then my relationship that started with my second husband. So during that 4-year gap, I got an opportunity to know me, get to love me, do some healing, and live life, because that's exactly what it was about. It was definitely living life. So when I got into my second marriage, well, actually, we didn't get married right away. We were together for 6 years before we actually decided to, I think, until he actually proposed, then we got, no, it was 6 years. Sorry about that. So it was 6 years together, then we got married. So the first 6 years, it was extremely rocky because of certain things that took place. And even though they were addressed, because they were addressed, I started to lose trust. And that marriage, due to, conversations with other women, and a lot of it had to do with my insecurities, because I wasn't sure what was actually going on. Some things I saw, I didn't like. But as mentioned, they were addressed, and they seem to have gotten better. And we got married, had another kid. And then it was just things, just other things that came about that I've heard. And that was like the end of my marriage. And with all of that, it was as if I lost trust in men. But I think the first trust that I lost in a man was my father. And then here comes the cycle of disappointments throughout my life. And it's like, when does the cycle break? When can I get a break? When can it be right and real? And that is all covering for Lorraine Dean, because Lorraine Dean is trying to find someone. She's trying to find someone that's going to love her as much as she can love them. She wants someone who's going to be genuine and dedicated to her, because this is something that Lorraine Dean can present and can give. As of Lorraine Best now. Lorraine Best, who is 20 years older, who has went through her trauma from the time she was 9 until almost 16. She has definitely healed. I have healed. And the reason why I have healed is because I wanted to heal. It was necessary for me to heal. I am a mother to 3 boys. I'm very, very protective over my children, even with them being boys, because things can happen to boys just as much as they can happen to girls. I am a mother cub all the way 100%. It doesn't matter how tall and how big my boys are. They are forever and will always be my babies. So as Lorraine Best has come about, after having 2 divorces and trying to date, got ghosted, and now just living life, I had to heal. Still going through some hurt and pains because, even though my family like to say I dodged the bullet, but I still got wounded. And with our wounds, there are still scars. We have scars from when we are children that we're able to tell a story about. We can say, hey, I know how I got this scar on my knee. I have a scar on my ankle from when I was, I think it was shortly after my mom passed away, because I was doing my hair. Don't ask me why. I had a freaking lamp between my legs trying to do my hair on the floor in the mirror, and I got burnt. And to this day, that scar is still there. And it's a reminder of what I did. So even with some of the, failed marriages that I have gone through, and please let me point out, I am not going to sit here and say it was all their fault. There are things that I could have also done better. Um, there are things that I probably could have tried to be more creative in or innovative in, or whichever way, but we do live and learn through our experiences. I wish I was able to learn while I was still married. The one thing I will say that I do miss hearing and saying is someone saying, "There goes my wife." And I love and miss saying, I'm gonna call my husband. I do miss that, because I am a family oriented person. I love that dynamic, and it was just sad that I had it for a short period of time when I was growing up, and then it was all wiped away and taken away from me from the moment that my mother had passed away, and then my father had started his deeds. So I created a world for myself as of March of 2021, because we're in 23, right? Yeah. So at March of 2021, I've created a world for myself and for my 3 boys. Whereas, I teach them the do's and don'ts. I teach them how to treat a woman. I teach them not to be disrespectful to a woman. Anybody's going to be disrespectful to either their children's mother, their mother, and it is presented in front of the kids, they are going to do the same exact thing. They are going to emulate that because they're going to think it's okay. Women nowadays are slightly different. Not everything you can get away with, and I'll leave that at that. But it is what it is. Some things you can roll off the back because you can easily say, well, you know what, this person is just not filled with life. This person is not happy with themselves. So in order for them to tear someone else down, in order for them to attack someone else, they have to say certain things. They have to be disrespectful. It's not easy being the person on the receiving end, whereas you're not even being that kind of way towards a person, but yet at the same time you're just receiving it left and right. And you just hope and wish that one day that the kids get old enough whereas you don't have to deal with that. So how this all ties in to life after divorce is that there are questions that I will ask a man. How are you towards your mother? How do you feel about your mother? Have your mother done anything whereas, made you feel a kind of way towards women? How are you with your children's mother? What is the relationship like? Are you guys able to be in the same room? Can you attend a birthday party together? Can you attend a school conference together? Can you do outside events together for the sake of the children? Those are the things that I will be listening to the answers intently, because it matters to me of how you treat the women that you grew up with, how you treat your surrounding women, whether you have female friends or female cousins. That is all necessary, because the type of man that I am looking for or want in my life is someone who's going to be loving towards their mother, who's going to be a protector towards their mother. Whereas, even so, we may come together as one, as a blended family, but if mom calls because, something has happened, or, God forbid somebody, broke into the house or whatever the case may be, I want to know that you're going to be that type of man that's going to be like, hey babe, mom need us. We need to get to da-da-da-da-da. And I'll be like, all right, let's go. Because let me tell you, I'm a ride or die. I'm always going to be there. And I'm always going to be there to support my partner 100%, because that is just who I am. So, these are the things that I'm looking for. Of course, we always looking for a man who is trustworthy and honest and loving. But let's talk about the men who cannot communicate. I want a man who can communicate and then also can trust to be vulnerable towards me, who can open up and tell me the most deepest and darkest things that have taken place in their life, and know that they feel safe with me and that I will not judge them. I am the last person to judge anyone. I'm not a bad person, but I'm definitely not a perfect person. And we all have our flaws or skeletons in the closet, things that we wish we didn't do. You know, the good thing is it's not too many things in life that I actually regret. And the reason for that is because it made me who I am. And I was able to see certain things to protect myself for the future, but most importantly, to protect my children. And I am able to give my children a heads up, especially with my oldest, which he turned 17 today. I'm able to prepare him for certain things. So when we have conversations, I talk to my son as a mother, but I also talk to him as a woman in the streets, because he needs to understand that these are two different women. But mama is going to have your back either way. Also being a praying woman, worshiping, and just trying her best. Tying Lorraine best of who I am right now. I'm definitely a much stronger woman than I ever have been. There's a lot of things that still hurt because I am flesh, but because God is so heavy into my life, not much can penetrate, especially when it's negative. Not much can penetrate through me. I'm able to withstand a lot. I'm also able to cut people off. I'll cut you off if you're a friend, family, or foe. It does not matter to me. And the most important part is that I can sleep very well at night. I have found my peace in almost 3 years. So I don't like that to be disturbed. And when it's disturbed, I will go in a rage. And I have my foundation. So remember earlier when I stated that as Tyler Lorraine Dean, you know, mom was sick, dad was in the military, and we moved around a lot, lived in shelters. I went from shelters to foster homes, kinship care, to group homes. And I didn't have a foundation, and I was looking for a foundation. Now I have a foundation, and my foundation is solid. It's very, very solid. There's no quicksand around this foundation at all, because it is extremely solid. And the reason why it's solid is because God helped reform this for me. There was no other person who can do it. I'm gonna be very honest with you. There was no other person that can do it. So with that, I'm able to build my house. Not a table, y'all, but build my house on this foundation. And with that foundation comes the safety, the place that people just wish they could be a part of and wish that they can have on a daily basis. I live my life through my children because they are the best. They have the best of both worlds between me and their dad. And when I see that they're happy, it makes me happy, and it gives me great joy. As Tanya Lorraine Best, I will continue to keep this foundation. I will continue to keep this peace. It is not easy, being alone, after 2 divorces. It's just not, easy. And I know a lot of people, I have one person I will say, she's like, oh, I can see you married again. And a lot of people say, it can happen, third time is the charm. And I was like, well, her second time was a charm, and that didn't happen. And I was like, for me, for marriage, God would have to tell me, like, this is the person right here. I mean, I need to see an angel come down and say, this will be the person that you are going to marry, because right now I'm scared of it all. I'm scared of disappointments. I'm scared of, putting my all, investing into someone, and it just demolished. You know, it's only but so much pain that a person can go through, and it was, you know, especially after the last time, I'm just like, I'm still healing from that. And like I said, that's because it's a choice of mine to heal, and I'm healing just fine. You know, I went through my crying spells, my breakdowns, and all this other stuff, but I am still here. And by the grace of God, I am pleased with all that He has done. He continues to provide for me, and at the end of the day, that man will show face. I will say that much, even if it's unspoken. So with that, I want to say thank you to everyone for joining me for our episode 4 of Blended Family of Life Before and After Divorce, Tanya Lorraine Dean versus Tanya Lorraine Best. You know, I will be posting some questions to engage, and I will love your feedback on everything that you guys have heard today. I am very transparent because that's the best way to be. We have a lot of people that go through a lot of things very similar and even worse than what I've gone through, and they still make it. But then there's also those who don't. And for those who don't, I am reachable, and let's talk about it privately, and we can see how you can get the help that you're looking for, how you can start your healing process, and because all of that is going to help you grow into the person that you are, and we can't do that without God. We have to be strong believers. So I want to thank you again for joining me, and happy holidays.
Plus, I know damn well I deserve it. I've been through hell and God knows it. I've got some scars.
Subscribe and listen to my mom's podcast. See you next episode.